adversity is something we all face. You face, if you're honest with yourself, adversity every day in small ways. You face adversity in every month, every week, all the time. But sometimes when adversity strikes, it's kind of very unexpected. And I had a large public adversity when I was the CEO of JCPenney. And you probably heard about it, some of you, but I'll talk about that. But by way of background, I grew up in the Midwest. Like most of you, I grew up loving sports. I was captain, honestly, not a resume, by the way, of both my little high school baseball and soccer teams. I played soccer at Stanford. I went to Harvard Business School. And then I made probably the best career decision I made. I had a couple offers going to Wall Street, and I'd been doing this expected thing. And I said, I kind of would like to become really good at something if I could. And I decided to become a retail guy. And so my first job out of Harvard Business School, I unloaded trucks for a little company called Mervyn's. And I started on the sales floor back of house. But I learned to be a retailer, and I spent about 15 years at Target. I was lucky to be at Target in Minneapolis when they had a really good run. Stock went up a dozen times during the time I was there. And then I had a chance to join Apple to work with Steve, and that's when I met Bill Campbell. He was on the board to kind of be the first retail employee. And so I got to work with a team to conceive of, what would an Apple store be, and where would you put it, and what would the experience be like. So I was at Apple for over a dozen years leading the retail group, which was a great experience. But then I was my work had become a hobby. We were really doing well. Apple stock went up much more than Target did. The company was on fire, and the stores, everyone we opened would be better and nicer than the last one. It was really fun. But I kind of felt like I should do more. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then I got a call about joining the board at JCPenney. So I met a couple of board members to join the board. And then they said, well, how would you like to be the CEO? And I thought about it, and I said, would I really leave Apple to go run a 110-year-old retail store? And the more I thought about it, I said that'd be kind of a crazy decision to go from one of the top companies in the world to one that's struggling. But I kind of like the challenge of it. And the more I thought about it, I get these ideas on what I would do if I did it. And I talked to a lot of people. I talked to Mark and Diane and family and Bill and Steve. And nobody thought it was a good idea. Everyone said, why would you do that? If you want to run a company, Bill said, I'll find you a company to run here in the Bay Area. And Bill was so opposed to it. You can't leave your kids. They're young. You can't commute down there. But no one thought it was a good idea. But I just wanted to do it, so I did it. Sometimes you just have something inside you got to do, and I wanted to do it. And it was interesting because Steve was very ill at the time. This was the last I was leaving about 6 months before he passed away. And he just said, can you stay 6 months? He goes, I just need time. I just don't want you to leave until, I said, all right, I can stay. Well, during that time, I'd go out to Penny's periodically while I was running the Apple stores and meet the team. And it became very clear to me, this team did not want to change. This team didn't see a challenge. They didn't want to change. The board said they did, but it was going to be really tough. And I remember sitting down with Bill about 2 months before I was supposed to start. And I said, this is going to be really hard. He goes, I told you. And he said, if I were you, I'd walk away right now. I said, I can't. The stock's up 20% because I'm coming. It was like up $1 billion. Everyone knows I'm coming. I can't leave. He said, I'd walk away. He goes, this is going to end for you. I said, I'm going to go for it. So I went out to JCPenney, became the CEO. 3 months after I started, the stock's now up 75% because I'd shared this vision of what we're going to do. Everyone got all excited, except the employees because they didn't want to really believe in it, but everyone was excited about it. And so we started. I'd been there 3 months, and in typical my fashion, I'm a pretty good risk taker. We changed everything. We changed our pricing. We changed our identity. We changed our marketing. We just changed a lot of stuff. And I told everyone that, come on in please, that this was going to be really hard, and it's going to take 4 years, and the first year is going to be incredibly hard. In fact, sales will probably drop 15%. And the board knew that, and the first month we dropped 19. And I thought, that's not that bad. It's about where we planned it. I didn't think it was a problem. Everyone else thought it was a really big problem. So the first board meeting starts to panic. Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Guys, I told you it's gonna be a tough year. We gotta get through it. And the next thing they say, we gotta eliminate the dividend. We gotta do all this stuff. And all of a sudden, Wall Street starts to worry and the stock starts to drop. And suddenly I was all alone at JCPenney. I was alone when I made the decision to go. And after a month being there, I felt all alone. I mean, I'd walk into this big headquarters building and no one would smile when I walked by. You know, they just kind of, there's Ron, you know. And every newspaper article was negative. Every Jim Cramer, I went from being the world's best merchant to the worst CEO ever. He doesn't know what he's doing. It was a mess. Now, fortunately, the stock was still well above where I started because a lot of investors believed. But it was tough. So I go from being kind of on top of the world. I'd had, you know, like a dozen great years at Target, you know, really good run at Apple. I just felt like everything I did would be good. And suddenly I'm in the middle of, you know, a really tough situation. And I'd come back here and people like Kathy Dwayne would see me. It felt like I was at my funeral. You know, they all felt so badly for me with the beating I was taking. But, so when adversity strikes, which it always does, the lesson I learned, and what I fortunately did is two things you gotta do. Number one, you gotta face it head on. You can't hide, you can't run away. You gotta accept it. And you gotta try to accept the reality of it. And then secondly, you either are gonna honor adversity or you're not gonna. And so adversity is gonna help you grow or it's gonna set you back. And that's a choice you make every time you face adversity. You're either gonna grow through it or you're gonna set you back. And I chose to grow through it. And I made the decision about a month in, and the reality, you talk to a lot of people, but you're on your own. You know, every night, you're on your own. And you gotta make these decisions, they're really tough. But I concluded two things. One, I wasn't gonna change the business strategy. You know, I was hired to be the CEO. I believed that they had to transform, that this retail industry is gonna get really tough. Amazon's growing, the internet's growing. If they don't change now, they're not going to make it through. And I said, I was hired to do this, and I told the board, I'm going to stick with the strategy. And they want me to go back. Can you go back? I said, no. I don't believe it's the right thing to do. If you want to go back, I will gladly leave. I offered to resign 4 times, three or four times that very first year. But we stuck with it. And then I made the decision that I'm not going to care about me, I'm just going to care about being the best person I could be through that. So I tried to love all these employees that didn't love what we were doing. I tried to love the analysts who were negative, the press. I tried to fly above the clouds. I tried to be a really good person. And we went through it. And the whole time, we ended the year, I think sales were down 22%, got a little worse. And finally, after a year, the board said, Ron, we're going to accept your resignation. And I said, great, that's fine. Because I'd accepted that it was my dream to try to turn around pennies. It was my dream on how to do that. If someone didn't agree, that's okay. You got to accept it and move on. It was humiliating. It was humbling. But I was ready to move forward. And it was really hard. And then the worst thing that happened, the hardest thing of it all, because I felt the whole time I was trying to be honorable. I didn't feel like I was always treated that way, but you can only control what you do. You can't control what others do. And I remember the day, you know, I said to the board chair, let me just send you a note that I'm resigning. He said, oh no, don't do that, because if you do it, we got to make it public within 72 hours. But, you know, we're going to handle this right. I said, great. And then he called, the board's accepted your resignation. Great. Can you read the press release? And it says, Ron's no longer with JCPenney. We've gone to a new CEO. I said, well, where's the has resigned? And he said, it's not going to say that. I said, why? He said, it's just not going to. And I said, but Tom, I resigned. He goes, I know that and you know that. It's not in writing. I said, okay. And so then everyone said, Ron's fired. But then I realized, you know, that's an ego thing. So what? Whether I resigned or fired, I'm not going to be with JCPenney. You got to accept reality. You got to humble yourself. You got to learn and grow. And so I became a better person through a really hard experience, right? And when I came out of it, interestingly, I just felt really blessed. because the reality, life isn't always perfect. And sometimes it's nice to go through something really tough. You find out who your friends really are. You find out what you really care about. And I remember when I got back here, Bill was one of the first people to reach out and say, Ron, we got to get together, And he said, you have been blessed. And his advice was, along with a couple other people, if you've been blessed, the only thing you do is be a blessing. So I decided to spend a year of doing nothing, no work, just to make myself available to other people who might want advice. So I was kind of being, maybe like Bill, being a mentor to some people. And I think everyone around here felt so sorry for me. I was getting like 10 calls a day. Will you meet with this person? Will you do this? I think they really felt that. Yeah. But as I started to be a blessing, I was blessed because I started to discover things. I discovered that I'm not really a retail guy. I like to create things. I like to create good jobs. I like to try to do things that are really hard. I kind of love being around all these startups that I'd go visit. And they were fun and they had great energy. And I love being around young people. And so that led me to, for the first time in my life, at age 55, start a company. So now I'm leading a new company. It's called Enjoy. You probably haven't heard about it. I think you probably will in the next year or so. We're staying really quiet. But I'm having the time of my life. And I'm working hard. I think we're doing really good work. We're already at 400 plus employees. We're expanding to 20 cities this year. But the only reason I'm doing that is because of the pennies thing. If I had stayed at Apple, I'd just be, leading the Apple stores. They'd be doing great. It'd be a hobby. It wouldn't have grown, right? But because I had this really tough experience, I became more humble, a better leader, and now I'm doing something that's really challenging, really fun, and it's been a, kind of a wonderful experience, right? And so I think one of the lessons you get in life, you're going to always make these decisions. What are you going to do? My advice is, as we heard earlier, do what's in your heart to do. If you really want to go to JCPenney, go to JCPenney. If it works, great. If it doesn't, grow, right? But always choose growth. Always choose trying to be better. And through that, always try to, become a better person, right? And if you do that, your journey will continue in a good way. And you'll get to do other things. And it's really not about what you achieve, it's how you do it. I think that's what Bill would have said. It's how you coach those kids. Yeah, sure, it's fun to win, but it's really about how you build a team, how you coach, how you play fair, how you honor things. And I, really benefited from really some of the hard times and not just the good times, right? So if I were you, I'd go for it. I'd do your best. If it's not going well, that's a good thing too, because it's a chance to grow. If it's going well, be thankful and keep moving. But understand that in life, if you really try to do hard things, you're going to face some adversity. But when you do it, when you face it, honor it. It's a good thing. All right?